Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick, once again joined by Justin.
Hello!
Righto, so there's something to do with 2nd edition that's been out there in the world for quite a while now, and we just never got round to talking about it.
Damage decks.
Yeah, the damage deck. We haven't talked about this yet, and we really should, because it's another one of these key things which really shines a light on the design direction heading into 2nd edition. Basically, the devs took a look at the 1st edition of damage decks, both versions of those, and said, hey, these are problems because this, and that. The whole mechanic behind damage decks has not changed. You get a critical hit into your hull, you have a face-up damage card. A regular hit into the hull is a face-down damage card. None of that's changed. But the sort of like the approach to each of these cards and the power level has changed. One of the key things Alex Davis has talked about with these cards is there's no longer cards that do nothing or do everything. There's no card that just wrecks a pilot altogether, but on some pilots does nothing. Every one of these cards seems to be relevant, but nothing is too crippling, and I think that's a good thing moving forward. Alright, let's go through each of these different kinds of cards alphabetically. And as you can see on each of these cards, on the bottom section of the card there is a number and a certain amount of pips. That just tells you how many of them are in the deck, which is a nice thing if you lose any of them. Yeah. Absolutely. Alright, let's start off with Blind Pilot. While you perform an attack, you may only modify dice by spending force. For their default effect, action repair this card. Right out of the gate, this is probably one of the more significant cards we can talk about today. The old Blinded Pilot was crippling with a capital C.
Yep. That with Kylo. Oh, I loved it.
Because X-Wing is all about making sure you shoot your opponent more than they shoot you back. It's a very fundamental thing in the game. So even taking out one attack of your opponent, even if it's not their best ship, it's still very, very potent. And this just removes the quality of your attacks. Now, it's not just one. You have to spend an action in order to get rid of this card. But there are still some pilots that are going to go, you know what, I'll just keep it. Like you say, you have your PS1 Z95. You'll just keep it on there and go, whatever. I need to do a barrel roll this turn or whatever. I'll remove the Blinded Pilot card in a few turns, and that's all good. But yes, a fair downgrade, and I'm very happy to see that. Also, it's setting a precedent. Nothing messes with Force tokens. That's just how it is. Force tokens are sacrosanct.
Which makes sense. I mean, like, even if like Luke was blinded or something, he can still use the Force.
Yeah, exactly. With the blast shield down, he can still use the Force.
Well, I was actually Kanan Jarrus.
Yes, absolutely, Kanan Jarrus, who is physically blinded. So yes, good flavor match there for sure. Let's move on to Console Fire, and this is actually very similar to its old version. Before you engage, roll one attack die. On a hit result, suffer 1 damage. And as an action, you flip it face down. And this is very similar to the old version. The old version of Console Fire activated at the start of the combat phase. Before you engage, sure.
Similar-ish time.
I guess so.
Slightly different.
Yeah, I guess that means before you shoot. Yeah. So your opponent might hit you before the Console Fire activates. I guess that makes it a little less powerful overall. It means your opponent does potentially have to waste an attack that they wouldn't otherwise have to.
But
it seems fair.
Like, if you get hit with that turn, it happens that turn.
That's a very good point.
Which kind of makes more sense. Like, you just got hit with a critical hit, your console thing's on fire, you're like, god damn it!
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, it's all about scaling with initiative. Initiative is a very sacrosanct thing in the game of X-Wing 2nd Edition. If your ship has a lower initiative, there's more likely a chance that's going to happen. If your opponent hits your ship with their ace, you get Console Fire, you then have to suffer the effects immediately. Which is good. I like the design is moving that direction. Let's move on to Damage Engine, and I'm very, very happy to see this. As a Shadowcaster pilot, I'm very happy to see the downgrade in this card. Instead of just making all of your turns red, it now just increases the difficulty of your turn maneuvers. So if you happen to be flying, say, a Shadowcaster or anything else with green turns, they now become white turns instead of red. Which is fair. It now means that every ship has the same level of downgrade. It's no longer green turns turn into red. I used to hate that. You're an Imperial pilot. You have a fair amount of ships that have green turns.
Yeah.
Inquisitor. Vader even.
Vader. Defenders.
Interceptors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair enough. I think it's not fair that a card cripples some ships more than other ones.
Yeah.
Giving it a fair nerf across the board is, I think, what X-Wing Second Edition is designed to go for.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Damage Sensor Array. You cannot perform any actions except the focus action and actions on damaged cards. And as an action, you can repair this card. So, it does not stop you from focusing, which makes a lot of sense because that's something the pilot's doing.
Yeah.
The damage on the ship shouldn't change that. So I think as a flavour thing, this is a win for sure.
Yep.
Also, flipping it, you no longer have to roll a dice. In fact, none of these cards you have to roll dice anymore.
Which is very nice.
Yeah, it is nice. I always hated that because it meant you could be wasting actions and then it doesn't do anything, which feels so bad.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I could evade or I could roll the dice, and you roll a blank and it's like, oh, I could have evaded. Like it's such a dramatic swing, and again, it's about spikiness. These are more consistent. They're powerful, but they're more consistent and less spiky.
Yeah.
Which I like. Yeah, Damage Sensor Array, I think this is a better, fairer version of what it used to be. Being able to focus still feels like you could potentially keep this card, but it's still going to be annoying.
Direct hit, suffer 1 damage, then repair this card.
Which, for tracking your damage, is fantastic, and that's the main reason this was done. However, we do have to point out that this actually had a bit of an upgrade, because direct hit cards now can be flipped multiple times to generate more damage.
If you have Rex Labrath or the new X-Wing...
Or Thankarel, yeah, exactly. Thankarel in particular, because you get to look at your opponent's cards, there are 5 direct hits in the deck. Now, that's a downgrade from the 7 of the old deck.
Yeah.
However, there's still a good chance. If you have, like, say, 3 face-down damage cards, there's a very high chance one of them will be direct hit.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can do this repeatedly is annoying, that's for sure. With the old version, you just flip direct hit face up, and that's that. That you can't generate any more damage out of it.
Yeah.
The new version is repeatable in some scenarios, and that could be dangerous. However, I will say, yes, I love the cleanness of having 1 card for every piece of damage. You no longer have to go, oh, it's 4 damage. Oh, but sorry, I have a direct hit. It's actually 5.
Yeah.
It's sticky. It's easy to remember.
Yeah, it was really annoying, especially on a large ship.
Yeah, coming from a decimator pilot like you. Exactly.
I'm sitting there going, okay, I have that. And then I would literally move the direct hit over, saying, like, that's 2 damage there. These are only 1 damage ones. It just looked a mess.
Yeah, it wasn't clean. Let's move on to Disabled Power Regulator. And what's interesting about this card is it's a card that could have existed from Wave 1. Yeah. Ion was in Wave 1 of First Edition of X-Wing. Before you engage, gain an Ion token. After you execute an Ion maneuver, repair this card. It's simple. It's playing around with a mechanic that is relevant on every ship. But, for some reason, this is the first critical card that gives you Ion.
It works so differently on the 3 different sizes of ships. On a small ship, it's a 1-turn thing. On a medium, it'll take 2 turns. On the large, it'll take 3.
Still annoying, but less powerful the bigger ship you have.
Yeah, with the bigger ships, you can then sort of...
Yeah, you could plan on... You know when you're going to get ionized. Unless your opponent has other things that ion you. But still, you can work with that. That's still fine. It doesn't play favourites with any of the faction. All factions have big, small, medium ships. That's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like a card that could have always existed, but for some reason
it didn't.
It does now.
Yeah, and I'm happy it does.
And again, it's before you engage, so it plays around with initiative nicely. Again, something that is fair enough. Let's move on to Fuel Leak, which is a completely new card. After you suffer critical damage, suffer 1 damage. Then repair this card. Action, repair this card.
And there's 4 of these.
There's 4 of these, yeah. It's kind of like we have less direct hits overall, but we have a few more of these Fuel Leak cards, which is kind of making you have a softer version of direct hit.
Yeah.
It is strictly worse than direct hit. Let's not beat around the bush there. But it's okay. It means there is different power level between these cards, but it is a very soft change in the power level.
Yeah.
You still might sacrifice an action to repair this when you really shouldn't have, and that is a little bit different. Yeah, you have to get critical damage in order to make it give you the extra damage, but there is more critical damage in general.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen consistently. Yeah, I like it. I like it that there's less direct hits and a few more soft direct hits. I guess what I call, in a Fuel League. And we don't actually have Major Explosion, and I think this is the fairer version of Major Explosion, because Major Explosion can give you another critical damage.
Yeah.
We just don't want it We just
No, none of that.
Go
None
away,
of that.
go away. It was the card which meant you could potentially get several crits in a row and just die on the spot.
Yeah.
It was the card that was in the deck, which means, oh, it's the last round of shooting in the game. You have 4 bits of hull. I hit you with 2 crits. Or I hit you with a hit and a crit. Major explosion could go into direct hit.
Yeah.
And lose you the game right there on the spot. Now there is only the potential to get direct hits, and I think that's probably just fair enough. Moving on to Hull Breach, which still exists in the game. I feel like, interestingly enough, sort of playing with the same space as Hull Breach. Hull Breach is the same. All of your cards just come in face up, and as an action, you flip it face down. Nothing has changed on this card. However, it does not say starting the round after you receive this card, which is potentially scary.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. Oh.
You don't like that? No. Considering there seems to be other cards that do specifically want to play around with activating the same turn, I think this actually works on the same turn.
Yeah.
I don't think it works within the same damage pool. I think all of these will resolve, and then when you take more damage from that point on. However, bombs, auto damage, all been powered down. Auto damage is just not a thing anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm not so worried about this one. Let's move on to Loose Stabilizer. After you execute a non-straight maneuver, suffer 1 damage and repair this card. So this is interesting. It used to be white maneuvers. Yeah, so you could get around this by just executing green maneuvers over and over again.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about non-straight maneuvers. And I think this is good because it means that certain ships don't have a massive advantage.
Well, not only that, the loose stabilizer used to give you just stress. This is damage.
Yes.
Sure, it's only a 1 of damage, but still.
Yeah. It's specifically cards like the Shadowcaster in first edition, which would just take loose stabilizer. I'm like, well, I'm just going to do 3 speeds for the rest of the game then.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. This is something which I feel like you have to deal with. No ship can just do straight maneuvers forever. So that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Taking extra damage sucks, but a lot of things are giving you extra damage anyway. So I don't feel like that's... it doesn't stand out amongst the rest of these damaged cards. So, yeah, that seems fair enough. And it seems like it's a bit more powerful, but it's more powerful across all the ships instead of just blanking out on certain ships. Panicked Pilot is the new version of Thrust Control Fire. Instead of getting 1 stress token, you get 2.
Stress is going to be so much more powerful in this game.
There's going to be more incidental stress.
Yeah.
It's going to be something you have to deal with more often. And frankly, the 1 stress off Thrust Control Fire was just a bit... There were plenty of situations where I just didn't care.
Yeah, like you were happy to see that.
I mean, even on your ace platform, sure, if you just push the limit that turn and you get the extra stress, that sucks, sure, but if you didn't, it means you're just going to do a green maneuver next turn and you can still use push limits the next turn. Now, I know push limits doesn't exist in 2nd edition, but there are still linked actions, so it's relevant. It's going to lock you out of doing certain things. It's going to work with linked actions a bit more stressfully if you happen to just do a linked action and then you get 2 stress tokens. You are taking some time off to get rid of those stress tokens.
Yeah, that's 3 stress all of a sudden. And then, that's 3 turns before you can do another linked action.
Which could be the rest of your ship's life.
Yeah, on an ace ship, that's...
It really hurts.
Yeah.
It really hurts. I mean, ideally, you're not getting crits on an ace anyway, but could happen.
Yeah.
And it sucks. Panic Pilot, yes, I think this is fair enough. One of the few cards that's getting what I consider to be a significant upgrade, but a fair one.
Yeah.
Because Thrust Control Fire was just never that impactful. Next up, we have Structural Damage. When you defend, roll 1 fewer defense die. That's it.
Yeah.
That's just it. There is now no option to get rid of this card. The previous version was roll to get rid of it, which does not exist in any of these cards anymore. So it wasn't great. But yeah, that's kind of scary.
Makes sense. It's structural damage. It's a major part of your ship.
Absolutely makes sense for sure. Look,
like how could you repair that on a normal ship?
During a battle anyway. You'd have to land and then get it properly repaired. But the whole idea was there were ships that just didn't care about this, ships with 0 agility. And that's still the case. I understand that. But even ships with like 1 or 2 agility, and if they had the option to repair it, you weren't too stressed out about it. Now it's something you got to deal with. You just have to deal with it from now on. Like, it's going to be a pain on fire sprays, for example.
Yeah.
And previously it was like, oh, I can always just roll when I get out of the battle. No. You're dealing with it. Yeah. Just, it's a thing now. You can't get away. And also, another good thing, like many other cards that had regen or whatever, this is not encouraging you to disengage. We want less of that overall. We don't want Miranda flying away and regenerating 1,000 shield.
God.
No, nothing like that anymore. No. Just take the card and deal with it and keep fighting.
Yep.
Whatever. That's just how it goes from now on. Next up, we have Stun Pilot. After you execute a maneuver, if you moved through or overlapped an obstacle, suffer 1 damage.
So yeah, very similar to the original one.
Except the original one doesn't say about moving through. Now, I assume the language, quote-unquote, moving through means your template overlaps an obstacle. I've heard a lot of, particularly from new players, it's like, oh, hang on, don't you have to track your ship as it moves across the obstacle all the way? Which is not how I've ever done things in X-Wing. It's all about whether that maneuver template touches it. And this is the first time that's been referred to. That's what I assume is going on here anyway. So it's going to be a bit more relevant more of the time. Again, it's just suffering regular damage. That's fine. A lot of these cards are going to trigger more often than just suffer regular damage. There's nothing that gives you crits or anything. And Stun Pilot is the kind of card that if you do not be careful with, it can lose you a game. And it just got a little bit more powerful. It's not relevant all the time, but it means your opponent can then start to block you. It's a card that actually changes your behaviour and your opponent's behaviour. I like that. Yeah. It's strategic. It's what the game's meant to all be about. And making that card a bit more relevant, yeah, big thumbs up to that. Next up, we have Weapons Failure. While you perform an attack, roll 1 fewer attack die. Action, repair this card. So this is very close to the original one, except you're not rolling to flip the card.
Yeah.
You just flip it.
Yeah, which feels, as we said earlier, it's better.
Yeah.
You're not wasting a turn hoping that you can get it.
I hate roll to flip. I can't repeat that enough. It really bothered me in first edition. It wasn't consistent enough. I know we need some element of chance, but didn't like it. So, Yep, very happy with this one.
And with the final card, we have Wounded Pilot. After you perform an action, roll 1 attack die. On a hit or crit result, gain 1 stress token. Again, flavour.
Absolutely.
That's nice.
Yeah. So it's about all your actions become red, kinda. I guess is the best way of looking at this. You can just repair it as an action, which is fine.
Yeah, this is one of the ones that you'd be fixing pretty quick smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless you really have to take an action. If you're in a very tight spot, if your opponent keeps pressuring you again, it's playing around with what's actually happening on the table.
Yeah.
It's about strategy. Your opponent can capitalize off this by pressuring your ship. It's everything.
Yeah.
Everything is encouraging you to engage and keep engaging. Nothing is encouraging you to disengage. And Wounded Pilot's just another one of these cards that make me go, yep, perfect. This is how it should work. Yeah. Very happy with this. I'm very happy with all of these indeed. And before we wrap up, we'll just talk about a few of the cards that did not make it into this deck. First of all, Major Explosion. Yes, nothing just gives you criticals anymore. Yeah. Fair. Too spiky, too annoying. Very happy to see this going for sure.
As we said, it's sort of been replaced with the fuel leak, which is
powered down but more consistent. Very happy to see that. We don't see Shaken Pilot, although that kind of has been mimicked in Loose Stabilizer. You can't be given straight maneuvers. Kind of works with the new Loose Stabilizer card, although that's more about locking out your dial. It's more about what the old Loose Stabilizer is doing, but it's kind of like these two old cards have been merged into one. And again, I think it's more about some ships just don't care about not getting straight maneuvers. So that's why they got rid of it. They're trying to make it more consistent across the board. And lastly, we do not have Damaged Cockpit anymore. From now on, there is no way to change your initiative. No damage cards do it. There's no Veteran Instincts. There's Heightened Perception, which means you engage at Initiative 7, but that's it.
Yeah, and you've got Gunner cards that started at Initiative 7 as well. But
exactly, but there's nothing that makes you activate a different initiative. So, Damaged Cockpit's gone. Good. Initiative is sacrosanct. If you invest the points in a high initiative guy, you can be confident in the fact that he's going to stay at that initiative for activation. Yeah. Very happy to see that. It is worth noting, though, Alex Davies has said, we have designed this damage deck to be for the life of X-Wing 2nd Edition. Okay. They don't want to do this again.
That's good.
It is very good. They don't want to have 2 damage decks and you get to choose, because then there may be a way to exploit them.
Yep.
I mean, these are printed cards. These are not affected by the app, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, they could just have a new damage deck that they release at some point and go, this is just the updated version. But I agree, it's something they probably don't want to do, and I wouldn't want to see. I don't want to see updated version of physical media. That's something they're moving far away from. No more FAQs or anything like that. It's just bad. Anyway, guys, we've fawned over these damaged cards for far too long. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, and I will catch you guys later.
Bye.